Welcome to a special edition of Red Eye. I'm Greg Gutfeld, and for the next hour, we pay tribute to a man who's been on the show more times than I can remember, including our first two shows, and boy, were they horrible. Andrew Breitbart, the media publisher, best-selling author, and activist, died of natural causes in Los Angeles early Thursday. He was a wonderful, glorious maniac, and I still think that this might be a hoax. I do. I really do. He was just 43. To me, though, it's like a fiery planet going dark. His last wish for Red Eye, I hear, was not to have Pinch at the table, so we had the newspaper removed. Let's welcome our remaining guests. I'm here tonight with Kurt Loder, Reason Magazine and Reason.com contributor, Ann Coulter, political commentator, columnist, and author. TV's Andy Levy. He still wanted that title, even during this solemn occasion. Bill Schultz, who will not be my repulsive sidekick today. And sitting right next to me is Michigan Congressman Thaddeus McCotter, who should have been our next presidential nominee, but he failed. No, just kidding. And I go to you first because I think I wouldn't have met you if it wasn't for Andrew Breitbart. I think he introduced you to me, trying to convince you to do this show. By the way, this show would not exist without Breitbart. It was him who talked to Fox to get this show, or to get me a job. I was living in England, and he talked to people at Fox. I met with people at Fox. The next thing you know, it was Red Eye. And everybody here that's sitting here, with the exception of Bill, because I knew Bill, we never would have met. We never would have met if it wasn't for Andrew Breitbart bringing us together, because that's what Breitbart does, or did, and probably still will, somewhere, wherever he is, talking to somebody on his cell phone constantly.
Yes, and your introduction reminds me that not only would Red Eye not exist, but Acorn would exist, and Representative Anthony Weiner would exist. I've been amazed today listening to how many people knew Breitbart and have talked to him in the past 24 hours.
Yes.
Man, he had a lot of friends, and he told me so much about you before I met you. He was following you on Huffington Post, and there was one in particular that he demanded that I go and look up, which, sorry, I didn't. But it was about an ice cream truck.
Right.
And he said, you know, there are all these ponderous left-wingers posting on the Huffington Post. And this guy, I've never even heard of him before, and he has this long piece on an ice cream truck. And he was like that with a lot of people. He never claimed credit for himself, although you look back and you see that he was the glue or the instigator for so many right-wing things, for Friends of Abe, for Red Eye, for the Huffington Post, of all things. He helped Drudge when Drudge was starting up the Drudge Report, and back when I first met him, back in around 96, 97, for the James O'Keefe doing those Acorn videos. And he never claimed credit for himself. He was always promoting, especially fantastic talents like you, Greg Gutfeld.
And he, you know what, you mentioned this one thing. He had no problems being behind the scenes. He did a lot of work for a lot of very famous people who took that work and did well with it, and Andrew didn't get a lot of credit for it. I want to show real quick before I come to you, Andy. You know, if it wasn't for Breitbart, we wouldn't have Red Eye. We wouldn't have met each other. He was, therefore, obviously, one of our first guests. He was the first guest. Here's a clip. What I don't know what else to say about Neil Cavuto.
Well, what I want to say is about you. And you said that you're not going to have a lot of viewers, but I think that you represent a lot of viewers like myself who have no discernible expertise on anything, and I think that people will relate to you on that.
Okay, so I look like a raving drunk. He looks like the bass player of a Swedish rock band. But he's got the long hair. He hasn't. They haven't gotten famous yet, so he hasn't lost the weight.
He needed a lute.
But he was. He really was. He did need a lute.
Yeah.
I said that to him once on the show. I think in halftime, I said, you know, he looked like a wandering minstrel.
Yes.
He should have been talking in verse.
Yeah, he should. He should. Yeah, he'd be dancing along like this, like this.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you know what? That was the interesting thing about Breitbart, is that there wasn't anything like him in the conservative movement. I always look at him as kind of an evolutionary step from the Merry Pranksters, making change and almost creating or publishing events through action, not writing things, but making things happen. Congressman, how did you meet him?
Well, I think I met him through Bettina Incline, who's now at the Republican National Committee, knew about this blogger named, activist named Andrew Breitbart, and that he had retweeted something that I put out.
Yeah.
And she said that was a good thing.
Yeah.
Having gone through his Twitter stream lately, no, it may not have been. and so, like with everybody else, you know, he would be very warm, very inviting, and you get to meet him. We actually took my wife and kids took our family out there. We sat down, ate pizza with his at the place, did a little something for PJ's Internet when Breitbart was doing that, and I loved him.
Yeah.
I mean, the man was just, he was what you said. He was a magnetic personality that was very humble in his basic understanding of how things worked. And none of us would be here without him. And I think that our thoughts and prayers go out to the family. And I know that he will never be replaced.
Yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing. It's you measure people by the void they leave, and it's a bizarre, massive void. That sounds a bit weird. But Kurt, how did you end up? Because Kurt, like I didn't meet you until perhaps a year and a half ago through Breitbart. Again, this is something that Breitbart did.
Yeah.
He said, you should meet Kurt Loder. And we go to a restaurant. We met. And
no reason.
Yeah, no reason. Just you guys should meet Kurt Loder. And I go, Kurt Loder, the legend from MTV, the guy that I grew up watching. No offense, it's only 3 years apart from us. But I'm going like, this is weird. So we end up at Balthazar. And we're smoking cigarettes, and we find out Breitbart knew who the like minds were, right? He knew that you and I would hit it off. There was something that he understood about people like you and me.
He was an enormously charming guy. I have a friend in L.A. who's a down the road left winger who met Breitbart and was so charmed by him. They became pals.
Yeah.
You know, he was that kind of guy, I think. If he were here today, I think he'd be outraged being dead.
Yes. Yeah.
So I can't be dead. I've got projects on the burner.
Yes.
I've got things to reveal.
Yeah.
I've got feckless government bureaucrats to fry.
Yeah.
I want my time back.
Yeah, and like Charlton Heston, you'll have to pry the BlackBerry out of his cold, dead hands. Bill, before I get to you, I want to go with one of the feathers in Breitbart's cap, and this is when you talk about something that who does this sort of thing. It's the whole Anthony Weiner phenomenon, in which I believe Breitbart liked Weiner, Anthony Weiner, and it was not a personal thing. It was about honesty. It was about this is not true. I need to find the truth. So he co-opted an Anthony Weiner press conference. You know the story.
She can talk to you more specifically about the ways with which she received these photos. She's the one who is attesting to the fact that it came from Congressman Weiner. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of this congressman's body at this, and he's in very good shape.
This is what made Breitbart special. He understood, Bill, to step away and look at this as a circus, and he enjoyed the circus. He knew that this was, okay, the big story is there's dishonesty, there's a cover-up, but he makes a comment about the guy's physique.
Yes, and there was an actual internet rumor going on earlier today that said that he was in the works with the network that runs with CNN to co-host a show with Anthony Weiner. Now, CNN's denied it, but I have to say he could probably make that happen. And lo and behold, I'd actually watch the show on CNN.
I would watch that show if it was posthumous Breitbart and Weiner, because Breitbart's soul and spirit would still be there. We have another clip from that press conference. My favorites.
Do you know what I would be accused of if I released this photo? I'm doing this to save his family, okay? And if this guy wants to start fighting with me again, I have this photo. But I absolutely do. I'm not doing this for nefarious purposes. I'd like an apology from him for allowing for his political protectors, this was his strategy, was to blame me for hacking. Oh, don't worry, Breitbart's our regular whipping boy. We can accuse him of anything, and the press will not hold those journalists to account no matter what they say. And so I'm here for some vindication.
Hey, Ann, the one thing about Breitbart that always struck me as kind of impressive is that he could take a sentence and turn it into the longest sentence ever. I mean, the thing is, you know, being on the phone with him, is that it?
Yes, I've rearranged my shoe closet in conversations with him. But they're always delightfully funny. And, you know, that press conference, I mean, you were saying, He was new for the conservative movement. He is new for America, for the world. The merry pranksters, yeah, they were fun, but they weren't getting institutions shut down. They weren't getting congressmen to resign. They weren't exposing the mainstream media. He was both a prankster and an amazing raconteur, but actually moving things forward and changing the world.
Yeah, I'm glad you said raconteur because I could never pronounce it, and now I do. But we've all been on the end of the Breitbart phone calls.
Well, here's the thing, and I think anyone that knew Breitbart knows this. You'd be sitting at home maybe, and the phone would ring, and you'd look, and you would see it was him, and I think literally half the time you would not pick up because Andrew didn't understand that he was a freak of nature.
Yeah.
He had this energy that like the energy of a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And you would just sit, and you knew if you picked up the phone, that was 2 hours of your life gone. And it was always interesting, and it was always fascinating, but it was this high-energy, non-stop thing until finally he would just say, the way he always got off the phone, okay, bye.
Yeah, okay, bye.
And then click, he was gone.
The best thing is, the best phone calls with Breitbart is when he is doing 3 other things.
Absolutely.
He's got 4 kids in the back seat. He's always holding a big iced coffee, and he's on the phone, and he's like, oh, yeah, great. Well, here's the thing. Here's what we got to do. I'm going to be sending you the pictures. You got to, oh, hold on a second. $35? Okay, $35. I gotta get $35. And the kids got screaming. Okay, and so you're like hearing this, and you're going like, I'm at work. I'm at work. I want to show. I know this is out of order, but there was it involves rollerblading. To give our producers a hint. The one thing that I love is how Breitbart would engage his adversaries. He showed up at like an anti-capitalist protest, but he came with love and with rollerblades, and then later he invited all the people that hated him to an Applebee's, I believe, and they went with him. I think we have some tape of this.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Who does this? Who will do this?
Well, you can't get mad at somebody on a rollerblades, and you definitely can't get mad at someone on rollerblades while enjoying Applebee's.
Yeah,
particularly after the 5 o'clock special.
But it goes back to the people that run into him end up liking him no matter what.
Yeah, I used to tell, all my liberal friends if the subject of Breitbart ever came up, and a lot of them, they absolutely loathed him. And I would tell them, look, if you met this guy, within 5 minutes, you would like him. Within a half hour, you would want him to be your best friend. Yeah. I mean, he had that effect on everybody. It was, I honestly think it was impossible, if you met him in a non-political setting, it was absolutely 100% impossible to dislike him. Yeah. You had no choice. You ended up, he was so infectious, not in the way Bill is, but in a good way. And there was just, there was no way, like I said, there was no way not to enjoy him.
He was a different guy away from the cameras and the swarming reporters. I mean, he really knew a lot about pop culture. Yeah. He knew a lot about technology and about media. He was excited about everything. It was very infectious, I think, to be around him.
He was, we would sit around. I would give him CDs. We'd talk about music, and we were both frustrated by the fact that, like, we were the few people that in our, that did that. Andy's like, Andy has bizarre musical taste, but there was like nobody. It's like, it was just hard. I want to, Congressman, you were on the floor today. Also, you were in Congress. Just a little joke there, lighten the mood. And you had some eloquent words about our dear departed friend Andrew Breitbart, and I'm talking slowly to make sure you have it ready now.
In endeavoring to eulogize anyone, there is truly no more eloquent testament than their family, and to his wife Susie and their 4 beautiful children. Our prayers, our thoughts, and our acts are with you. Professionally, in Andrew's prodigious genius that was his life's work, he tirelessly fought the good fight, and in the end, gave his all with every fiber of his soul to serve his fellow human beings and his country.
Congressman, I think you got to cut back on the smoking.
Well, I said it slowly so they could make sure they got it for the clip. But I think the one thing that I tried to convey about him, and I think everybody here has said, and Ann has said, he knew that politics was a part of life. Politics was not life.
Yeah.
And if you disagreed with him, he did not hate you. Yeah. Which is the way normal, rational human beings are supposed to approach this.
Yeah.
And it's such a dichotomy with the way that he's being treated in his passing by others.
Yeah.
And I find that, to me, to be very frustrating. But in the end, you take from his example, one of the best things is, if you disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean they're a bad cat.
Yeah. You know, and one of the things we talk about, you know, what he does at events, he's electrifying. But my wife always calls him, my wife is from Russia, and she just calls him the wizard. Because wherever he goes, he conjures up something. So you could be in a restaurant, and it's just a normal restaurant, but then like 5 minutes later, there's like a whole group of people doing some dance. And it's like, she goes, what did the wizard do? And I mean, you must have seen this.
Oh yes, and I've cornered him at boring parties so that he would, as a raconteur, start telling us all stories, and yeah, there usually would be a crowd around him. I do think you're selling him short by saying he didn't hate liberals, he just wasn't angry about it.
Yeah.
He told me it was getting to be like, he said, I now understand you, but he took it to a much higher level. He said, it's like crack, I am addicted to irritating liberals, I must do it every morning. And also one other thing on his, yes, he had lots of liberal friends because he could entertain anyone and people loved to listen to him. But that would also lead to him introducing you to an astonishing cast of characters whom he had just been entertaining at the bar. And, you know, Andrew, you just introduced me to a pimp. That actually happened.
Yeah. Now, Bill, you don't agree with him on 90%, but that never mattered.
Second to last time I was hanging out with him, we were at a bar probably a little more late than we should have. We were like literally talking about the. Yeah, I actually, Breitbart might have been there. I was already home, you know, doing my prayers. But it was, and I didn't notice it until the halfway through the conversation. We were talking about something like the Dodgers. And like halfway through, it was kind of loud. And after he finished his point, and I started saying something, he'd just go, socialist. And I just go, socialist, like that. And he did it for about 5 minutes, like, what are you doing? And he's like, nothing, socialist. And, you know, stuff like that. You cannot love the guy for that.
Yeah, because that's fun. It's like when you should, if you can call somebody a commie pinko, it's because you actually like them. If you can't call them that, then that's because you don't think they deserve to know.
He also had a very entertaining obsession with bad music from the 1980s, which you would never expect to find. You know, he knew every Madonna track that came out.
Yeah,
there was good music in the 1980s.
Wait.
Well, yeah, there was.
He liked a lot of New Romantic, Duran Duran.
Well, he used to.
Spandau Ballet.
I don't think he's done it in a long time, but like a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, he used to get on Twitter some nights when clearly he only had 29 other things going on, so he needed a 30th, and he would start playing Twitter DJ and start linking to videos and songs, and it was like Pet Shop Boys, Crowded House, Echo and the Bunnymen. It was all this 80s, mostly Brit stuff.
Yeah.
And it was just hilarious to see.
His favorite band, I believe, was The.
He loved The.
Yeah, and it was a band that I completely overlooked. He was also a Smiths fan.
Yep.
But he loved that kind of new romantic, new wave music. I was more into heavier stuff, but I'll cut him some slack now that he's gone. I would have yelled at him about it now if he was alive, but you know. All right, coming up.
He got lost for.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say he drove an hour out of his way once because he was in a car by himself driving to a speech, and that 80s pop music came on the radio that he loved so much. So he called his wife Susie so that for 1 hour she could stay on the phone and they could sing the songs together on the phone at the top of their lungs. And then he realized an hour later he had taken a wrong turn and was going in the wrong direction.
Oh, jeez. Coming up, more stuff about Breitbart. Andrew, what do you make of this? Is this the kind of policy California needs right now?
Can you do me a favor?
Yeah, what do you need?
Tell me more about what happens in the prison. No, seriously, you have no idea. I've never.
Oh my God!
Not the first.
Now it matches your pants.